Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. It's Thursday, October 8th. I'm Stephanie Haney. I have your top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you very much for choosing to be here to get filled in on what is impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. We start off today with new news out of the White House of another person who is being severely impacted by COVID-19. The head of the White House Security Office, Creed Bailey. This is the person who is in charge of the security office and handles people getting credentialed for White House access. He has reportedly been hospitalized with COVID-19 since September. Bloomberg is reporting today that Bailey contracted the virus before September 26th. Now, that was the day that event was held, announcing President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. He also works closely with the Secret Service. Now, several people at that Supreme Court event have been infected with COVID-19, but it hasn't all been officially confirmed that they all got it from that event. It's possible they could have gotten it prior to that event and just all happened to be at that event together. Of course, we do know that President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have been dealing with COVID-19 since last week, and they were both at that event. It's now been reported that at least 35 people have tested positive for COVID-19 within the White House orbit. That includes top military officials. That includes Admiral Charles Ray, who is the Vice Commandant of the Coast Guard. He was at a September 27th White House event honoring Gold Star families. Now, as of the latest information, Admiral Ray doesn't have any symptoms, but him testing positive did send the country's top military officials who have interacted with him into quarantine. And we do know now that at least one person who was in contact with him, another military official, has also tested positive for COVID-19. That is General Gary Thomas, who is the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps. He was at an October 1st meeting at the Pentagon with other senior military officials, and it's being reported now that General Thomas has mild symptoms related to COVID-19. He was in contact with Ray. We do know as well of that at the Pentagon on Friday and experiencing, as we said, mild symptoms. Now, speaking of COVID-19 symptoms and what that means for the country moving forward, of course, yesterday was the vice presidential debate, which we're going to get to fact checks from that in just a moment. But we are now learning that President Donald Trump has said he will not participate in a virtual debate if that is what happens. And that's what is supposed to be happening according to the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission on Presidential Debates has said that the debate that was supposed to be held in Miami between current President Donald Trump and the Democratic presidential candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden, set for October 15th in Miami, would be held virtually. The Commission on the Presidential Debates made that decision on their own, unilaterally. They said there's a need to protect the health and safety of all involved with the second presidential debate. Of course, because the president has tested positive for COVID-19, we learned that very early on Friday morning of last week. So, the commission had said that both Trump and Biden would participate from separate remote locations, and the participants, because this was to be a town hall style debate, and the moderator would be in Miami. Well, President Donald Trump said on Fox Business News that he's not going to do a virtual debate. He said that moments after the commission announced those changes. Now, Biden's campaign said that he would move forward, and Biden himself said that he was looking forward to being able to debate the president, but we're going to have to follow very strict guidelines. He also said that the president shouldn't have a debate with him as long as the president remains COVID positive. That's something he said earlier in the week. Now, President Donald Trump's campaign said that he would do a rally instead of the debate, and he tweeted earlier this week that he was looking forward to the debate. Bill Stapien, who has also tested positive for COVID-19, who is President Donald Trump's campaign manager, had some different words for the commission. Here's what Stapien said, quote, "For the swamp creatures at the Presidential Debate Commission to now rush to Joe Biden's defense by unilaterally canceling an in-person debate is pathetic." This is a continuing quote from Bill Stapien. "The safety of all involved can easily be achieved without canceling a chance for voters to see both candidates go head-to-head. We'll pass on this sad excuse to bail out Joe Biden and do a rally instead." Now, as a reminder, the Commission on Presidential Debates has been running presidential debates and vice presidential debates. They were in charge of that debate last night as well. Since 1987, it's a bipartisan committee. They had come to this decision unilaterally, which means on their own. And by the way, if you've been watching the debate, if you watched the first debate, if you watched the debate last night, here's my take on it. The entire time we're looking at them, it's in a split screen. You wouldn't even know that they're in the same room. Yesterday, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, who is the Democratic candidate for vice president, were 12 feet apart. So, logistically speaking, from a camera angle, you can't really get a good view of both of them from a single camera. So we see them in those split screens side by side the whole time. So visually speaking, to have a remote debate really wouldn't look much different to all of us here at home. So interesting tack that's being taken here. Again, very strong words from Bill Stapien, calling the people that are running the Presidential Debate Commission swamp creatures and accusing them of rushing to Joe Biden's side. Of course, we don't have any indication from the Biden campaign that they actually asked for a virtual debate at this time. Now let's move on to the vice presidential debate. Let's do some fact-checking from the debate last night. But first of all, before we get into fact-checking the debate, can we just take a moment to talk about the thing that everyone is talking about today, which is that fly. That fly that was on Vice President Mike Pence's head for a solid 2 minutes during the debate last night. I just want to say, we don't know if he didn't feel the fly or if he did feel the fly and just had the incredible self-restraint to not try and brush that off like he was in a theatrical performance and didn't want to brush the hair out of his face or something. But either way, it's pretty impressive. And I think the fly was the star of the show last night. A lot of political analysts, a lot of commentators saying that there weren't necessarily major takeaways from the vice presidential debate, that there was a lot of dodging of questions on both sides. But let's get to the fact checking. Here's from our Verify team some of the claims that were made yesterday that we're fact checking for you now. The first claim, that when Joe Biden was vice president, 60 million Americans contracted H1N1, which people generally call the swine flu. This is true. According to data from the Centers for Disease Control, there was an estimated 60.8 million cases of H1N1. Now, that is over a year-long period from April 12, 2009 to April 10th, 2010. Now, the CDC says those total numbers could have ranged anywhere from around 43 million to around 89 million. That's a big range, right? Well, when we're looking at those numbers, that's a year-long period. We do need to remember, if we are comparing this to COVID-19, the COVID-19 hasn't been around for a year yet. It's been just about 8 months since the end of January. So if we're going to compare, we need to keep that in mind. But as of today, according to Johns Hopkins University, there are over 7.5 million reported cases of COVID-19 here in the U.S. Now, looking back to that time frame from the CDC with H1N1, there were reported about 12,500 deaths in the U.S. Now, with COVID, as of today, there is now reported from Johns Hopkins University about 212,000 deaths. So when we're looking at those numbers, again, slightly different time periods. We're looking at a year for H1N1. We've got about 8 months so far experience with COVID-19. There were many more cases of H1N1, but much fewer deaths when we're looking at those numbers. Here's another claim. Vice President Mike Pence claimed that the Trump administration suspended travel from China before 5 people caught COVID-19. That is actually not true. It's close, but it's not true. The Trump administration said that it would be suspending travel from China on January 31st. So as of January 31st, 8 people in the U.S. were confirmed to have COVID-19. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. Another claim that was made repeatedly last night, current Vice President Mike Pence said that former Vice President Joe Biden wants to end fracking. This claim is not true. In April of this year, Joe Biden did an interview with KDKA, that's the CBS affiliate in Pittsburgh, and was specifically asked if he wants to shut down fracking. So Biden said, "No, I would not shut down this industry." He says he knows his Republican friends are trying to say that he did say that. Here's what he did say. He said he wouldn't approve any new leases on federal lands for more fracking. So he said he would not approve any new leases, didn't say that he would shut down the industry. And then in September, at the CNN town hall with voters from Pennsylvania, Biden was asked again, Do you support the continuation of fracking safely and with proper guidelines, of course, and growing the industry to create additional jobs for our region? And he responded, yes, I do. So in that instance, he said he does support growing fracking to create additional jobs in that region. However, previously said that he would not allow any new leases on federal land. And if you look at Joe Biden's campaign website, it does call for ending fossil fuel subsidies and for the U.S. to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Another claim that was made yesterday during the vice presidential debate, current Senator Kamala Harris was talking about serving on the committee that's responsible for the climate and made the claim that the Trump administration took the word science off the website and took the phrase climate change off the website. So she was speaking generally. So this claim is true in general, but we do need to look at which websites because there is a distinction there. There was a study done by the Environmental Data and Governance Initiative, which tracked U.S. government websites and found lots of changes where things were removed and parts of websites were changed by the Trump administration. The Environmental Protection Agency is one of them. Also, the White House website. Removal of climate change information was also done from the Department of State and Department of Energy websites. So what the study found was that in many cases, quote, explicit mentions of climate change and greenhouse gases have been replaced by vaguer terms such as sustainability and emissions. However, not all government websites have had those words removed. If you go to climate.gov and cleanet.org. Both of those have collections of government information about climate change that are still on those websites currently, so you can go to those websites today. But if you look at the other websites that we mentioned, the EPA, the White House website, for example, vaguer terms have been substituted for words like climate change. Another claim we're fact-checking from yesterday from our Verify team, Vice President Mike Pence said that Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. So the USMCA is the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, and that was signed into law to replace the North American Free Trade Agreement, and this is true. Senate documents do show that that bill passed the Senate with 89 votes supporting the bill, 10 votes against it, and Harris was one of the 10 people who voted against that bill. One more fact check for you from last night. This was a hot topic. This has been a hot topic, that Supreme Court nomination. Well, Senator Kamala Harris said that there was a Supreme Court vacancy 27 days before Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election, and he chose not to fill it until after the election. She also suggested that he chose not to do it because it was, quote, not the right thing to do. Well, it is true that Abraham Lincoln did not fill that vacancy until after he was reelected, but we don't necessarily know why. So what happened in that case was a seat opened up on the Supreme Court 27 days before an election, and Lincoln waited until after reelection to select his nominee. Well, during the debate, Kamala Harris said that Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States, and then that person will be able to select who will serve on the highest court of the land. However, we don't really know why Lincoln made that choice. There's no evidence that he waited because he thought the seat should be filled by the winner. We do know, however, that he waited until after election, and it wasn't until December that he filled that vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court. Now let's turn to some local updates for you. Yesterday, we were talking about what was happening in Eastlake Middle School with COVID-19 cases. Well, now we know that Eastlake Middle School will actually be temporarily closing because another student has tested positive for COVID-19. The Willoughby Eastlake School District has shut down the middle school for the time being. Also, most Willowick Middle School 8th graders will be quarantining because a student has tested positive there. So 3 middle schoolers have now tested positive in the last 2 days, 2 at Eastlake and 1 at Willowick. So the original plan was just to keep all Eastlake 8th graders home until October 19th because one person had tested positive. Well, when that second student turned up testing positive, they now have said the entire school will be going remotely so that they can deep clean, and that is part of their COVID-19 protocol. So Lake County Health and school leaders believe that the students are contracting it from family members. Also, there's a quarantine issue happening in Mayfield City Schools. There are hundreds of Mayfield City School students quarantined after COVID-19 cases. It's more than 260 students and staff right now within the Mayfield City School District that have been quarantining because of COVID-19 concerns. So how that broke down was there was one positive COVID-19 case confirmed on October 4th. So because of that, there were 145 students at Mayfield High School, 2 students at the middle school, 1 student at CEVEC, and 5 staff members that were asked to quarantine. Well, then 2 days later, on October 6th, there was a positive COVID-19 case confirmed at the middle school. So then 96 students and 11 staff members of that building have now been asked to quarantine. So that's what's going on in Mayfield City Schools. Other places that are currently having COVID-19 quarantine issues include Lake Catholic High School. They are asking close contacts to quarantine. They haven't disclosed a number after one person tested positive with COVID-19 that's associated with the football team. And at Kent State University, there are 57 people that are living in 2 different residence halls. They're being asked to quarantine until October 16th. One more thing to let you know before we go here. We do have a new segment on What's New, which is the 5 p.m. show. That's where I do the trending stories segment called Clicking in Cleveland. Well, this new segment is called Who Knew You Could, which lines up very well with WKYC, in case you didn't notice. So what we're asking for are your life hacks, because there are tons of ways where we're all making our lives easier, right? But we don't necessarily always share those, or they're not necessarily easy to find on the internet. Some of these things are very much trial and error. Here's a good example for you. You can get wine out of the carpet with Windex. That's a hack that we shared in our first Who Knew You Could segment. Another segment, you can use a hair straightener on a low setting to reseal a bag of chips or something very carefully that doesn't have a reseal of its own. So if you're having trouble keeping a bag closed, you're not going to use it for a little while, you can use that hair straightener to just clamp it shut again, and it'll be just like a brand new bag. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking for, or whatever life hacks are making your life easier. And you can submit those to us through the WKYC app. Just open up the app, scroll down, you'll see a bright orange bar that's asking for your life hacks. The kind of things that make you say to yourself, who knew you could? That's what we're looking for. If you submit something, please include photos or video, whatever you think best expresses and explains how to do the thing that you didn't necessarily knew you could do. But this is very important. Please include your name, your phone number or email, where you're from, so that we can reach out to you and let you know that we're going to include your hack, potentially on TV, on WKYC.com, and on our social media platforms. And one more thing to also remind you of, that the 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney show is now a podcast, which you might be listening to us on your favorite podcast platform right now. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe and rate and review the show. We want to know what you're thinking. You can always send me a DM. I love to hear from you guys. That's _ Stephanie Haney on Twitter and Instagram. That's it for your 3 News Now early update for Thursday, October 8th. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. as soon as we get those new numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health related to COVID-19 and the rest of the stories that are topping WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Stay safe and be well. I'm Stephanie Haney.